My parents' marriage was always the gold standard in my eyes. 30 years of what I thought was unwavering love and partnership. They were the couple everyone envied, the ones who still held hands on walks and finished each other's sentences. That's why, when my father called me late one Tuesday night, his voice trembling, my world tilted on its axis. He asked me to come over, saying it was an emergency. I rushed there, my mind racing through 100 terrible scenarios, a health scare, a financial crisis, something devastating. But what I found was so much worse. I walked into a house thick with a silence I'd never felt before. My mother was sitting at the dining table, her face pale and her eyes red-rimmed, staring at a teacup that had long gone cold. My father was pacing the living room, his hands running through his hair, looking 10 years older than he had just last week. He finally stopped, looked at me, and the words he spoke shattered the perfect image of my family forever. He told me he was in love with someone else. The air left my lungs. It felt like a physical blow. He explained that he'd been having an affair for the past 2 years with a woman from his office. A woman I'd met at company picnics. A woman who had smiled at my mother and praised her baking. The betrayal was so immense, so layered, it was hard to process. I looked at my mom, who just gave a tiny defeated shake of her head. She knew. He had just confessed to her moments before calling me. I thought that was the emergency. I thought my role was to be there for my mother, to help her pack a bag, to rage at my father on her behalf, but I was wrong. That wasn't the reason he called me. My father took a deep breath, his eyes pleading with me.
He said, "I need your help."
I need you to talk to your mother. I was confused. Talk to her about what? Forgiving him? Leaving him?
He continued, his voice dropping to a near whisper.
I need you to convince her to let her stay. I stared at him, sure I had misheard. Let who stay? I asked, my voice barely audible. Let Maria stay with us, just for a little while. She's been kicked out of her apartment, she has nowhere to go. The audacity of his request was staggering. He wanted to bring his mistress into our family home. The home my mother had painstakingly built, filled with memories and love.
He wanted the three of them to coexist under the same roof.
He saw the horror on my face and tried to justify it. He said it was temporary, just until Maria found a new place. He said it was the only decent thing to do, that he couldn't just abandon her on the street. He framed it as a matter of compassion, completely ignoring the monumental cruelty he was inflicting on my mother. I turned to my mom, expecting to see a blaze of fury, but instead I saw emptiness. She was broken. She looked at me, and with a voice so fragile it was like listening to glass crack, she said, "He thinks if she's here, I'll get used to the idea. That we can all be a new kind of family? A new kind of family?" My father, the man who taught me about integrity and respect, was now proposing a living arrangement that belonged in a twisted soap opera. He wanted my mother to accept his infidelity, not just in theory, but to live with the physical embodiment of it every single day. That was the moment something inside me snapped. The daughter who idolized her father vanished, and in her place was a woman I didn't recognize, filled with a cold, hard rage. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "No." It was a simple word, but it was filled with the weight of 30 years of lies. "Absolutely not. Are you out of your mind? You will not subject Mom to that kind of humiliation. You will not bring that woman into this house," he started to argue, to rationalize his insane request, but I cut him off. "This isn't about her," I said, pointing a shaking finger at him. "This is about your selfishness. You want to ease your own guilt by playing the hero, but you're doing it on Mom's broken heart." I told him he had to make a choice, right then and there. It was either his family or his affair. There was no middle ground, no grotesque blended household. He couldn't have both. He looked shocked, as if he genuinely believed his plan was reasonable. He had become so lost in his own world, his own desires, that he had completely lost his moral compass. He thought that because he had been a good husband and father for so many years, he was entitled to this madness. He actually believed we owed him some sort of understanding. The argument that followed was the ugliest I've ever witnessed. It was raw and painful, with years of unspoken resentments bubbling to the surface. My father accused me of not understanding, of being cruel. I accused him of destroying our family, of disrespecting my mother in the most profound way imaginable. Through it all, my mother sat there, silent. It was as if she had left her body, a spectator to the demolition of her own life. Finally, exhausted and hoarse, I gave him an ultimatum. If Maria sets foot in this house, you will lose me too. You will not see me. You will not see your grandchildren. You will be alone. The threat of losing his grandchildren, his legacy, seemed to be the only thing that penetrated his delusion. It was a low blow, but I was desperate. I saw a flicker of the old dad in his eyes, a glimmer of the man who used to read me bedtime stories and cheer the loudest at my soccer games.
He sank onto the couch, defeated, and finally, he put his head in his hands and wept. The fight was over. The shocking request was denied.
But nothing was fixed. The wound was wide open and the trust was gone forever. In the days that followed, the house remained a battlefield of silent tension. My mother finally found her voice, and with it, her strength. Aided by the fire I had lit, she told my father to leave. He moved into a small, furnished apartment, and Maria was never mentioned in our house again. The divorce was quiet and swift. My father tried to mend things with me, sending long, rambling emails about his regret and loneliness. I read them, but I couldn't find it in myself to respond for a long time. The image of him asking me to help him move his mistress into our family home was burned into my memory. It took years for me to even begin to have a civil conversation with him again. Our relationship is not what it was. It's a fragile, reconstructed thing, full of careful topics and unspoken truths. I do it for my kids so they can know their grandfather. My mother, on the other hand, thrived. After the initial heartbreak, she rediscovered herself. She started painting again, joined a book club, traveled with her friends. She built a new life, one that wasn't defined by my father. That shocking request, as horrifying as it was, ended up being a strange sort of gift. It was the catalyst that forced the truth out into the open in its most undeniable form. It prevented years of simmering resentment and quiet suffering. It was the slap in the face my mother needed to wake up and choose herself. And the moment I had to stop being a child and start being her protector. It changed everything, and in the end it showed us who we really were and how strong we could be when the worst happened. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've been through something similar, know that you're not alone, and that there is strength on the other side of betrayal. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more true stories. See you next time.